I want to show you guys something absolutely crazy around Bitcoin. So we're in the midst of massive geopolitical tensions. If you look at the Strait of Hormuz, the Strait of Hormuz is pretty much closed and there's not any traffic passing through it. And so as a result, you've got oil above what I called the war line. In fact, oil's at about $75 and it's above this war line that we created, which kind of said that if we're above the war line, it's in escalation mode. And if we go below the war line, it's not in escalation mode. At the same time, Asian markets are absolutely getting wrecked. Just look at this chart around the Asian markets. Look at the South Korean KOSPI. After going down 5% yesterday, it's probably down in the last couple of days from top to bottom. It's down about 20% from top to bottom as a result of everything that's happening. The Nikkei is pretty much the same picture. It's down about 10% from top to bottom. And the crazy thing is that in all of this, Bitcoin's actually going up. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. And I'm going to try and break it down for you in the show. I'm going to show you exactly why Bitcoin's going up and how we could actually get into a massive short squeeze and even go beyond the massive short squeeze now. And maybe this is Bitcoin's chance to actually come back. And I'll show you the route as to how Bitcoin actually comes back. So today's going to be crazy because Bitcoin's doing crazy things. Let's get going. You know, the other day I tweeted in jest and I said, maybe all Web3 needed was World War III. Who would have thought that the catalyst for Bitcoin, after going down for so many months since October 10th, and actually, I mean, you almost want to say that Bitcoin was abusing its holders all the way from October 10th, and maybe even before October 10th. Who would have thought that actually what Bitcoin needed, or what crypto needed, was actually potentially World War III? And when I say that, I don't only mean the price of Bitcoin, because yes, it is about the price of Bitcoin. And if you look, Bitcoin is one of the only assets that's actually going up in price since the wars actually started. And we're going to take a deeper look at all the data there. But maybe this war just showed a whole lot of use cases that crypto basically has. And when I say that, I mean, the first thing is, you'll remember that this attack actually happened when markets were actually closed. In fact, all markets were closed except for crypto. And so where did the world go to get their price discovery from? Where did the world go to get their oil price discovery from? They went to Hyperliquid. Where did the world go and gauge panic? They went to see Bitcoin and they went to see the crypto markets. And that gave them a sense of how bad the war actually is. Where did the world go? The world basically went to crypto. Not only that, when a war starts and you need to start moving money, and that's generally when ATMs are closed, and that's generally, I mean, if you go to the people of Iran now and you ask them how they're moving money around, or how the people of Venezuela moved money around, that's when they realize just how valuable Bitcoin actually became. So maybe this World War III, and I'm calling it World War III, I don't think it is actually World War III, but maybe this just reminded the world how important crypto is and how much of a difference crypto is actually making. And that's really what I want to spend some time on today. Guys, if you've just joined and you haven't yet hit the like button, hit the like button. It really does help getting distribution. I'm going to blow your mind the show, showing you what I've just discovered. I'm going to show you why Bitcoin's doing something absolutely crazy, something that it hasn't done, I think, in a long time. And maybe what Bitcoin is actually doing now is Bitcoin's chance to save itself and to become the ultimate store of value. It may be hopium, but I want to take you through the scenario anyway. Let's look at the scenario. So this is where we are right now. We've got geopolitical tensions. The Strait of Hormuz, as you can see, this is where all the oil, or 30% of the world's oil, actually passes through. That's pretty much closed. There's no vessels that are actually going in and out of the Strait of Hormuz. Craziest thing is that Trump is basically saying that, the insurance companies, they don't want to insure any vessels passing through the Strait of Hormuz. And I understand it because, like if you sink a vessel, you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And no insurance company wants to take that chance. And so effectively, even though Iran or the US says that the Strait of Hormuz isn't closed, I mean, it is closed, because if the insurance companies won't insure you, then it's pretty much closed. But Trump actually came out and said he's actually going to insure. So he says, I have ordered the United States Development Finance Corporation to provide at a very reasonable price political risk insurance and guarantees for the financial security of all maritime trade, especially energy traveling through the Gulf. This will be available to all shipping lines if necessary, the United States Navy will begin escorting tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. So essentially what Trump is basically doing here is he's starting to self-insure. He's saying, look, if the insurance companies ain't going to insure the vessels, the United States will actually insure the vessels, and we're going to start accompanying them through the Strait of Hormuz. At the same time, Iran is making this much more into a war. Yesterday, I showed you that they hit this Fuji, I don't know how you 𝗙𝗔𝗓 area over here. Now they've basically hit Saudi Arabia's most important oil terminal is hit for a second time. So you can see that Iran's turning this into an oil war. Obviously, many countries that are reliant on oil. So France basically says, let's get back and get secured again. The Chinese President Xi, he's basically said, look, the Strait of Hormuz must remain secure. So he's basically warning Iran. He's saying, look, we've been your ally here, and now we're telling you that the Strait of Hormuz better be secure here. At the same time, more escalations, much more escalations in Iran basically striking the U.S. embassy in Dubai. That's after they struck the U.S. embassy in Saudi. And so with all these tensions, what you've got Asian markets actually collapsing today. And not all the Asian markets, but specifically the Asian markets that are reliant on the oil from the Strait of Hormuz. We spoke about these guys yesterday. So Japan, one of them, South Korea, another one, Taiwan, another one. Those markets are absolutely crashing. You can see it here. Japan down 10.61% in the last couple of days, or since the war actually started. South Korea having a really bad run. I mean, you can see, and I think here I was actually looking at the futures, which I think are probably a bit better to look at. Down 12.06% today. So and you ask yourself, why are these countries getting hit so hard? Let me give you a little bit of an explanation. So the thing about South Korea is that South Korea imports 97% of its energy, right? And as Shanaka says, he says, almost nobody sees that the AI supply chain crisis is a massive crisis that's actually hiding behind this war. And why is that? Because remember that all the chips, the memory, are all manufactured in the East, and what they need is the oil to flow through the Strait of Hormuz. And like he says, this country imports 97% of its energy, and when the Strait of Hormuz is threatening to close, he says the Kospi lost 15% in 48 hours. Circuit breakers triggered for the first time in 568 days. $270 billion was vaporized. The world's hottest stock market went from 6,300 to 5,300. And he says the reason why is, he says, Samsung and SK Hynix together control 67% of the global DRAM production and nearly 80% of the bandwidth memory revenue. HBM is the oxygen of every AI data center being built on Earth. Every NVIDIA Blackwell chip, every Google TPU, every hyperscaler expansion relies on this memory that's manufactured in one country. And so what they're worried about is that if South Korea can't get the energy that it needs to actually start producing, then this starts to collapse. Now, the scary thing is that if this collapses and all of a sudden AI supply chains can't get what they need, then you start getting a worldwide AI collapse. And remember that AI is what's kept markets going up until now, right? So if you get a situation where the AI supply chain is disrupted, that becomes catastrophic. And that's what people are worried about. So right now, the markets are worried. Let's just put it into perspective, and I did put it into perspective for you guys yesterday. Even after this collapse of 20%, the South Korean market is up this year alone. Let me give you this year alone. Here, even after this, it's up 25% in January and February. It's crazy. And if you take the South Korean market over the last 2 years. So this is the South Korean market over the last 2 years. Let me just find January 25. Let's just take it from there, and we can go all the way. It's up 138%. So this is a normal correction. You just have to remember that the South Koreans are actually massive degens, and that's the part that's actually pretty interesting here, right? You'd imagine that in a country that accounts for 10% of the global crypto trade, and that's how much of the global crypto trade actually comes from one country, which is Korea. You'd imagine that if their risk markets were crashing, that Bitcoin would be crashing. And yet, this is the South Korean market, and this is what's basically happening to Bitcoin at the moment. And that's That's the crazy part here. You've got this massive geopolitical tension. You've got potentially the entire AI supply chain about to get disrupted. You would imagine that Bitcoin, that's been acting as a risk asset, or even worse than a risk asset, you'd imagine that Bitcoin would be going down, and yet Bitcoin's actually going up, right? And it's not only Bitcoin, it's obviously when Bitcoin goes up, the whole of the crypto market basically goes up. Now I want to talk a little bit about this. So we smashed through 64, 65, 66 all the way. We went past 71. Very close to $72,000. We nearly touched $72,000. But the most interesting thing here is that if you look since the war started, Bitcoin is the only asset that is actually up. So Bitcoin's up 11.5%. The S&P's down, the Nasdaq's down, gold is even down, silver is down 10%, and Bitcoin is the only asset that's actually performing whilst the market is in a global risk meltdown. The Nikkei's down 4.3%, Taiwan's down, Brent crude is up, which is a bad thing. EU gas is, and Bitcoin is the only asset that's actually moving higher. In fact, we added over $110 billion in the last 5 hours into crypto. So as James Bull says, he says, Bitcoin is now the best performing $1 trillion asset since the start of the war on the 28th of February, and has drastically outperformed gold, silver, copper, platinum, palladium, S&P 500, Nvidia, Microsoft, Tesla, Google, Amazon, Netflix, and Berkshire Hathaway. What is happening, guys? This is like something that's absolutely crazy. And the worst part, or the best part, is that this is happening in a period where even the dollar is basically strengthening. So generally, when the dollar is strengthening, you want assets that are priced in dollars to be going down. Bitcoin's going back up. So why is this happening? Well, the truth is, who cares? Maybe it was because we were completely oversold, and maybe it is because our sellers are absolutely exhausted and our RSIs on Bitcoin are very, very, very close to the bottom. Maybe that's the reason why. Maybe it's because fear and greed has been, I mean, have you ever seen the fear and greed like that for so long? Maybe that's why it's happening. Maybe it's because Iran actually has signaled that they want to end the war, though I believe that if that were really the case, I believe that when you looked at the US oil, there we go. If you look at the crude oil chart, I believe that if Iran was really about to end this war, then I believe that oil prices would basically reflect it. So probably not that. Maybe it's because of the fact that the US basically have been so successful in their strike. This is a WhatsApp that's been going around. I don't know if this WhatsApp is real, but what I can tell you is that I have done some digging of my own and speaking to people in the know. I can't really mention how I got hold of them, but what I can tell you is that they corroborate the story. And the story is that they're ahead of schedule. They've wiped out the entire Iranian Navy. They've got full air superiority. And the number of missiles that actually keep coming out of Iran now is basically diminished every day. And maybe that's why all of a sudden Bitcoin's starting to run. It could also be because of something completely different. It could actually even be because of the Clarity Act. And the reason why I say it could be because of the Clarity Act is because it seems that they have a lot of progress. And right now, Donald Trump has actually jumped into the mix. And he's basically said, the Genius Act is being threatened and undermined by the banks, and that's unacceptable. We're not going to allow it. The US needs the market structure done ASAP. Americans should earn money on their money. The banks are hitting record profits, and we're not going to allow them to undermine the powerful crypto agenda that will end up going to China or the other countries. If we don't get the Clarity Act taken care of, the Genius Act taken care of, the Genius Act was the USA's first big step into the United States, making it the crypto capital of the world, and the Clarity Act basically needs to be done. He said the banks should not be trying to undercut the Genius Act or to hold the Clarity Act to hostage. They need to make a good deal with crypto because that's in the best interest of the American people. So it seems that they're getting very close to the Clarity Act being passed, despite the war, which is turning everyone down. It seems that they are getting very, very, very close to getting it. Apparently, Brian Armstrong was part of a group that visited the White House yesterday, and apparently they met. We don't know if they met directly with President Trump, but they're getting very close to finalizing the Clarity Act. Now, you'll remember that what Jamie Dimon's after here is he wants to forbid if you're holding USDC, he wants to forbid Circle or USDT or whatever it is from distributing the rewards on the money that is invested behind your stablecoins to the people. And that's because that would make them if you've got a banking account or savings account in the United States, you're probably earning 0.1%. And here you could be earning 3 or 4%. And Jamie Dimon wants to protect that. He says he wants to level the playing field. What he really wants to do is that he wants the stablecoin people not to be able to give you a better deal than you can than the traditional banks can give you. And that's bad for consumers. And so ultimately what we're fighting here for is for consumers. And I'm not sure which way the Clarity Act's going to go. I'm pretty sure it's going to get finalized pretty soon, and that's what the poly markets are telling you. They're telling you there's a 74% chance that this Clarity Act is about to get finalized. So I'm not sure how when, but I'm pretty sure it's just about to happen. In fact, the information I got last night was that we could get an announcement as soon as today around agreement when it comes to the Clarity Act. So now so this could be the reason why Bitcoin is actually pumping. But as I said before, when I started this, I said, look, it doesn't really matter why. The why doesn't matter. We can try and justify the moves. By looking at multiple fundamental news items, and you'll find news for and you'll find news against. I think the important thing is that it is happening, and the thing is that now Bitcoin kind of has this chance. Imagine we get into a scenario where in the midst of the highest geopolitical tensions, in the midst of a period where gold was coming down, silver was coming down, markets were coming down, oil was going up, Strait of Hormuz was closed. Imagine that's the time that Bitcoin actually starts running. If that happens, then Bitcoin basically reclaims its position as the highest or the best store of value, right? So you almost go from a situation where Bitcoin was like neglected, it wasn't a store of value, it wasn't a risk asset, no one knew what it was, to a war breaks out. Not only does Bitcoin become the ultimate sentiment indicator when all the other markets are closed, not only does crypto become the playground, because every other market is closed, the playground for price discovery, the playground for Bloomberg actually quoting hyper-liquid prices. But ultimately it can prove that Bitcoin is the ultimate store of value. So in a period where gold's going down, where markets are going down, where everyone's going down, Bitcoin comes back and says, I am the ultimate store of value. And actually, when you look at the chart of the VIX and Bitcoin, what you do realize is after the VIX usually spikes, Bitcoin pretty much has a run. In other words, when people are fearful, Bitcoin actually does land up having a run. So as I say, I'm not sure as why this happened, but what I can tell you is I can plot out a path for you as to what could happen next. So let's play the scenario out. The scenario is that Bitcoin continues to run for the next couple of days. Stock markets continue to get hit for the next couple of days. Then a couple of things land up happening, and gold starts getting hit and silver starts getting hit. So what actually lands up happening in that scenario? Well, let me play out a scenario for you now. I'm not sure if this scenario will actually happen, but it's good to play out the scenario. Let's say Bitcoin continues its run. Let's say that markets continue to come down, gold continues to come down, and ultimately Bitcoin carries on its run. Step one, what happens is we start getting a short squeeze because we know that there's a lot of short open interest and we start getting an absolute short squeeze. As we get the short squeeze, the market starts going up. As the market basically starts going up, what happens? Well, people start to FOMO in because they start saying, hold on a second, maybe Bitcoin is the store of value. Why? It's the only asset that's actually moving up in this war. Maybe in this war, Bitcoin is a store of value, and we get another little leg up here. And then after that, maybe we get some good news around the Clarity Act, and then that takes us another little leg up, and before we know it, we're back in the trend line. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen, but I think it's a scenario worth considering. Right now, as it stands, Bitcoin is the only asset that is moved, the only $1 trillion plus asset that has moved up since the beginning of the war. Right now, it seems like the sellers are exhausted. Right now, it feels like the RSIs are pretty much at a low. Right now, we're about to get an RSI crossover. I can't tell you how it plays out, but I can tell you that there is a scenario. And if that scenario actually happens, then Bitcoin ultimately proves that it is the ultimate store of value, and we get back into game on mode, and everyone gets happy. Now, again, I say, I don't know if that's what's going to happen, but I need you to be cognizant that this is one of those scenarios. Now, look, I'll be back here tomorrow, like every other day, bringing you crypto love and crypto wisdom and walking you through this. Let's hope that this pump actually continues. And in fact, one thing I recommend is that one thing that I actually recommend. How did that duck arrive here? Was that
one of your shortcuts?
Oh, okay. So one thing that I actually recommend is there's a lot of news actually coming out at the moment. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but every 5 minutes there's news and you don't know who to trust. That's why we built a news terminal. So, I mean, what is this news terminal? At face value, it just looks like a terminal that's serving you with news. It's not that simple. There's an AI engine behind this that has basically scoured every single Twitter account, Discord account, Truth Social account. And it knows which tweets can move the markets and which tweets can't move the markets. It serves those tweets and posts to you in a matter of milliseconds. You can see it actually tells you how, like, that will serve to you in 20 milliseconds over there. And not only that, it actually allows you to take long and short positions directly from the terminal in a matter of seconds. So when this news came out, let's say that I wanted to buy Bonk, I literally pressed the button. That happened too quickly. I pressed the button, and within milliseconds, you can see I'm back in Bonk. If I want to close the position, I can just close it from here, and within milliseconds, I'm out of the position. Guys, we're in a war. Things are changing every second. If you want to be able to trade this, I'm making it free for you guys. It's literally free. You can go and you can sign up to the news terminal. Here it is. It'll give you, the first month will be free. You can cancel your subscription after the first month, or you can keep it going for $99 a month. Right now, just go and sign up for free. Right now, it's probably the best thing that you've got to serve you the right news in the middle of a war situation and help you basically trade and actually make money. If you don't make money in the first month, just cancel your subscription. No money lost whatsoever. Anyway, let's hope the crazy situation in Bitcoin actually plays out. Let's quickly just look at the altcoins while we're here. I mean, 𝗙𝗏 is up 10%. I see quite a few other ones are up. 𝗙𝗏𝗏𝗏, I mean, I think that when this storm actually passes, I really think 𝗙𝗏𝗏𝗏 might have its day. I mean, I've seen what they're doing in terms of being able to code totally decentralized applications using that caffeine app, and it's absolutely amazing. All right, let's chat again tomorrow. I'll see you bright and early. Until then, trade well, my friends.